Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Be a Better You podcast. My name is Allison K. Dagney. I am your subconscious reprogramming expert, and I am here to help you with your emotional abuse recovery to be the best version of you that you can. I am also a survivor of 20 years of emotional abuse, and I have been able to find the healing to help me become the best version of myself, which I'm still working on because, as you probably know, healing is a journey, not a destination. Now, if you've been listening and you listen, let's say in order, you may have recognized that the past two episodes have a little theme, and that theme is based on beliefs. A couple of weeks ago, it was why you shouldn't have seen the signs. And then last week was why you couldn't have known better. And this week is all about why you shouldn't have left sooner. Now, pause here for a moment and just let this sink in. If you are someone who is repeating this, I should have left sooner, please know I'm not trying to tell you you shouldn't have left sooner or that you need to change your thinking or anything like that. The reason I'm bringing this one up, why you shouldn't have left sooner, is to help you get relief. Because in the belief that I should have left sooner, you are holding yourself back. You're holding yourself in pain and suffering. And I want to help you break out of that. So this why didn't I leave sooner belief is self-blame. And let me tell you something. Someone abusing you is not your fault. Even if you knew that you should have left. Even if, you tried to leave many, many times and only came back once again. I think the statistic is 7 times that someone who's being abused tries to leave. In my mind, I left hundreds of times. I never actually took action. I never packed a bag. I never got in my car and went to a friend's house. I did that one time. The actual action I did one time. The thoughts about it happened hundreds of times. Hundreds of times of just getting in my car and leaving and never coming back. Hundreds of times of imagining how much better my life would be if my abuser just wasn't in it. And you would know that if you read my book, because the first line of my book is about how many times I imagined my abuser's death. And this is a really painful thought, to blame yourself for what happened and making it as if you had left sooner was somehow your fault that you didn't. But I'm going to show you the truth today, because you weren't supposed to, because that's not your situation. And reality is reality. And if we keep trying to live in these shoulds, we are actually holding ourselves back. You left when you had the capacity to, and that's what matters. And if you're listening and you're still in a relationship with someone, the same applies to you. You're there for a reason. Whether it's you've got kids involved, whether it's you have fear and you're afraid, whether it's you have no job and you're not going to be able to support yourself, whatever that is, right? You're there for a reason. Now, I would encourage you to get support, to get help, to make a plan, to bring your kids and yourself to safety if you can. But the whole purpose of this episode is to shed light on the fact that, one, you couldn't have left sooner because that was your situation. That was your circumstance. And as long as you keep saying, I should have, you're keeping yourself stuck in regret, guilt, the past, and there's no healing there. Okay? I thought the same things. I thought, I should have left so much sooner. I would have had so much more life ahead of me, and my kids would have, not had to see and witness the things that they saw. I had so many regrets. But those regrets were not healing for me. Okay? So often what happens is survivors start to compare the length of time that they stayed with whatever they think like a strong person would have done or what the right thing is to do, right? Oh, I should have left at the first sign. Oh, I should have left when, they betrayed me the first time. I should have left immediately. But, relationships are complicated, and abuse complicates it even more. It clouds your judgment. It clouds your rational thinking. As I talked about in another episode, you're not able to think logically when you're under stress like that, when your nervous system is stuck in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So a lot of times abusers will have these thoughts, or not abusers, abuse victims will have these thoughts running through their minds like, if I really loved myself, I wouldn't have tolerated that, and I would have set boundaries, and I would have said no, and I would have stood up to them. But there's flaws in this, because when you're in the midst of abuse, you have to do whatever you have to do to survive. So tolerating it may be a way that you survived it. Another thing is people think is, I wasted so many years of my life. I know of women who stayed till they were 60 years old and then ended a 30-year marriage. And they think, oh, I wasted so much time. I should have left sooner. I would have, a better relationship with someone new. But here's the thing. One, you can't know what would have happened, right? Even if you had left so much sooner, you can't know what the outcome would have been. We don't have a crystal ball. We're not mind readers. We don't know what, we can't predict the future. So it feels like a waste, but you have to, and I'm going to help you shift this, but you have to think of things differently, because if not, you're going to just suck yourself back into this guilt and regret trap. And what that does is it keeps you ruminating. It keeps you sad. It keeps you stuck. And I don't want that for you. And I don't think you do either. Another thing is, thinking that the kids suffered because I didn't leave sooner. And maybe they did. I'm not saying that's not a reality, right? So I should have left sooner so that my kids wouldn't have had to suffer so much. But there's always other ways to look at this, okay? And I'm not denying reality here, and I'm not denying that we make mistakes, because we certainly do. We're human, and that's a reality too. That humans do mess up and we do make mistakes. But what we do need to remember is that we were operating at that time with whatever we had at the moment, with the perceptions that we had at that time, with the programming we had at that time, with the experiences, the fears, the emotions, right? At that time, you might have thought, if I break up the family, my kids are going to suffer, right? So you stayed. And then many, many years later, you look back and said, I should have left sooner because my kids suffered so much, right? You see how these are like two thoughts opposing, because you can't know. You can't know what the future holds. And when you're in the future, you can't look back and say, well, it should have been this way, because you can't know how it would have turned out. But this is how our mind works, and it kind of like tries to rationalize and run through all these scenarios, and it's really just trying to help you feel better. Oh, I should have left sooner because then my kids wouldn't have suffered. But then when you're in that moment, you might have thought, I can't leave because my kids are going to hate me, and my kids are going to be messed up because of the divorce, or my kid, you know what I mean? So every survivor goes through this. Every person who's been abused has these opposing thoughts, these predictions of the future, these beliefs about what could have been or should have been, right? And that's not abnormal, okay? So you need to know that first and foremost. This is something that just happens when you're under that kind of duress. And what this shows you is that the conditioning in that abusive relationship was very heavy. Okay? It's not proof, these beliefs like that I just rattled off, they're not proof that you failed somehow or that you should have or shouldn't have done something differently. That's one thing on my beliefs quiz on my website. So many people answer, I should have acted differently. I should have done that differently. They really have these deep beliefs that if they had done something differently in the past, that their life wouldn't be the way it is now, and then they wouldn't be in this pain. But here's the thing I want you to know and take away from this episode is the pain doesn't come from the choices, the should haves, the could haves, any of that stuff. The pain comes from the meaning that you give it. The pain comes from the beliefs that you're carrying. And when your reality disagrees with what you believe, you suffer. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. When your reality disagrees with your beliefs, you suffer. Okay, so here's the thing. Can we change reality? No. Reality is what it is. So in order to not be suffering, we have to change our beliefs. We have to reprogram what we believe. Now, some of you might be like, wait a second. You're telling me I have to stop believing this or change what I believe in? No, you don't have to do that at all. You can continue to believe things that are happening should be different. You can keep believing that. But you will continue to be angry, sad, feeling guilty, feeling regret, struggling. Okay? So you don't have to. I never, even when my clients come to me, I'm like, you don't have to change your beliefs. And really and truly, even when we're reprogramming, you don't have to change your beliefs. What you're doing is you're looking for other possibilities. The people who can consider alternative possibilities, the people who are open to thinking of things in a different way are the people who are at peace the most. Okay? So, and this is where I'm really skilled, because if a client comes to me and they are struggling because they can't see how, let's say, let me give you an example here of one recent. A client of mine was stuck on this repetitive thought of I wasted so much of my time on him. And what we had to start exploring was what wasn't wasted. And so when you actually start looking at that, that starts shifting you out of this hole of regret, right? And so she was able to say, well, I had 3 beautiful children from that relationship, and that definitely wasn't wasted. And I had formed really wonderful friendships throughout the course of the time I was with this person. And those people actually helped me when I left the abusive marriage. And so, of course, that wasn't wasted because I would have never met those people. And then there was one other thing she had said, because I'm like, well, what else wasn't wasted? And another thing that she said wasn't wasted was the learning, the lessons. That wasn't wasted, because now going forward into wherever she's going to go in her life again, she's not going to tolerate that anymore. She's not going to tolerate the abuse. She's not going to tolerate the disrespect, the lying, the cheating, all of the things. So that actually wasn't wasted because it gave her something super valuable. So it's just a matter of considering other possibilities. But what happens is your mind gets stuck on this loop, and it's really hard to get out of that loop if you don't have somebody kind of throw you a lifeline and give you a rope to kind of pull yourself out. And that's what I do. That's how I help people. I have, clients when they Voxer me and they say, I'm stuck. I can't think of any other possibilities. And I'm like, yeah, because your mind really wants to keep repeating this over and over and over again. So when I start sharing, wait a second, well, what about this? And I challenge them and they stretch their brain, then they can start to go, oh, wow, okay, I never considered it that way. And then you just crack open. You feel so much better. You feel so much lighter because this weight you've been carrying, stuck in this, like spiral, is now you're able to break free from. So I wanted to just address the nervous system science about this because most people don't know this, and I really want it to be really validating to you, because survival mode makes leaving nearly impossible. And so when we're talking about why you shouldn't have left sooner, well, this is a big part of this. When your nervous system is triggered, like chronically, your brain stays in survival states. It is going to jump into, I'm going to fight and be reactive. I'm going to run away and hide. I'm going to freeze up and not be able to make a decision. I'm going to fawn and be super codependent and do whatever my abuser wants, right? These nervous system, these survival states prioritize your safety in the moment for a good reason, because it's saying you need to protect yourself. You need to do whatever is needed to stay safe, right? But then what happens is the planning, the leaving, the considering of getting out of the relationship, that takes a back seat. That takes a back seat. These nervous system states are going to be paramount to any sort of getting out, leaving, getting a divorce, breaking up, whatever. They're going to take precedent always. Okay, so let the freeze response first. Sometimes people think freeze means that you're doing nothing, that you literally just are frozen. But it's the nervous system shutting down the higher thinking aspects of your brain to keep you alive. Okay, so when somebody tells me they're in freeze mode, it's like, I can't make a decision. I don't know what to do. I'm overwhelmed. And I literally can't think of any, my brain just goes offline. So you might have known something was wrong, but felt immobile or paralyzed. You can't act. You can't speak. You are afraid to say or do the wrong things, even when you wanted to. And the fawn response is that trying to please the abuser. And that's the nervous system's way of trying to avoid escalation, trying to avoid something worse from happening. That's the walking eggshells. It could look like a lot of other things too. And you might have told yourself, if I just keep the peace, everything's going to be fine. And I have to tell you, that's not weakness. That's just your body's way of protecting you. It's an amazing capability that you have to keep yourself safe and alive. And abusers also create these cycles of keeping you in fear and then giving you some level of comfort, right? So what happens then is these stress hormones like cortisol and even the bonding hormones, oxytocin, dopamine, they get you trapped in this addictive loop because you feel afraid and then you feel good, and then you feel afraid and then you feel good. And you're always chasing the feeling good. But it comes with a price of the cortisol, of the fear. But you're still chasing the oxytocin and the dopamine, and it's like an addiction. That's where that trauma bonding piece comes in. So again, why you shouldn't have left sooner. Let's look at the science behind this. I mean, it can't be denied, right? How could you have left sooner when you're stuck in an addictive cycle like that, right? See what I mean? Okay. And there's no failure in staying. I have to make sure that that's really clear. Just because somebody stays in an abusive relationship, emotionally abusive or whatever, doesn't mean that they're a failure. Okay? That person, whether that's you, somebody you know, their brain and body is literally trying to keep you alive the only way it knows how. And that is a good thing, right? We need you to stay alive, right? Even though it might seem like, oh, I should have left sooner. Oh, this person should have gotten out of that relationship. I mean, this is the thing that I hate, and it makes me ill when people are victim blamed and they say, oh, well, why didn't you just leave? This is why. All these things I just said in this podcast, this is why. This is why. Why didn't you leave sooner? Well, there's a lot of reasons. A lot. It's not as simple as just walking out the door, as most people say or think. Your brain is discombobulated. You are in cognitive dissonance. You believe it is all your fault. You were afraid to break up the family. You were afraid you were going to be harmed if you did, right? You're chasing highs of feeling good and being looped back into stress and fear. When you think of it from that perspective, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have left sooner because I couldn't have. I literally couldn't have. Okay? I'm not condoning it. I don't even want to bring morals and values into this. What is right? What is wrong? No. This is about you letting go of this thought that you should have done something that you didn't do because you couldn't have with things that you had in that moment. So give yourself a break. That's how you heal. Being kind to yourself. And then taking the lesson. Take the lesson with you. If you don't take the lesson with you, we're having a different conversation. But if you can look back and say, you know what? If I was put in that situation again today, I would definitely do something different. That's it. Full stop. That's where it ends. Good for you. Okay? So instead of I should have left sooner, reframe that. I left when I had the strength. I did. I left when it felt safe to me. I left actually when I had this giant revelation about who my husband actually was. Because the whole time I had been operating like he was just this great husband who wanted the best for me and was just trying to help me improve. And I was just this like broken, horrible wife, mother, Christian, everything. Right? When I realized what an abuser was, what emotional abuse was, what narcissistic abuse was, I was like, holy cow, I have got to get out of here. But I didn't know that then, so I shouldn't have left sooner because I didn't have the information that I did when I finally did leave. Okay? Instead of this wasting time, wasting years narrative, maybe shift it to okay, I survived this trauma, years of it, and then I found the freedom. And that is actually a testament to my strength. I was with my abuser from the age of 19 to 37, almost 38. That's a long time. That's 20 years. And yes, there was a part of me that thought I had wasted that. But if I keep dwelling on the waste, I'm not looking at anything that was good. I'm not looking at any of the gratitude that I have, that I had children from it, that I started a business in that marriage that is now sustaining part of my life, that I had so many just profound experiences that I know that now look at my life. I would not be on this podcast telling you these things had I not gone through those 20 years. You would not be listening to me. You would not have read either of my books. Many of you would not have any of the resources that you have right now. Many of you would not have had the coaching that you have right now from me. So is it really wasted? No. I mean, I can't even say that. I can't. And you might be like, well, I don't have those things. I haven't done those things. Then find your things. Stretch your brain. Look for it. You will find it. Something you can do to help you is write a timeline of your relationship and then look at it and circle the exact moment that you left, that you escaped. And then ask yourself, what happened in me to make this possible? And really think about it and reflect on it and honor that. Because usually for most of us, there's a pivotal moment. There's something that happened that we said, no more. I'm done. Okay? Maybe you left after the kids were older because when they were little, it didn't feel possible. Okay? Maybe you left after you saw your ex harm a pet or punch a hole through the wall or cheat on you or whatever. Maybe you left after just a million tiny moments were stacking up, and you finally had a tiny bit of energy to act because it pushed you over the edge. None of this stuff means you're weak. It means you are learning. It means you're wise. Your nervous system finally knew when it was time to break free. And if you're still in the relationship and you're still like, I really need to find a way out. I really need, here's the thing. I remember just wishing my husband at the time would cheat on me to give me an excuse to leave. If he had only cheated on me, outright physically abused me or something like that, for me, it would have been way easier for me, I think, because it was so in your face. And I think it would have been so much easier for me just to have pulled the plug at that point. But that wasn't happening. So if you're somebody who's still in the relationship and you're like, I need a reason to leave, well, the reason to leave is you. You are the reason. To protect yourself. Because you deserve better. Because you deserve peace and love and support and respect. And if you're not getting those things, find that timeline for yourself. You write that timeline and you figure out when it's going to happen for you. Nobody is here to tell you to leave. Nobody is here to tell you to stay. That has to be your choice. Okay, but if you're waiting on something to happen before you can actually act, well, you could be waiting forever. That would have been my case. Had someone not told me that I was being emotionally abused, this was narcissistic abuse, sociopathy, psychopathy, if I had never been told that, I'd still be back there. Because that's what was the catalyst for me. And I was like, wait, he's doing this on purpose? He's been lying to me this whole time and telling me it's my fault. I was like, that's enough. I'm out of here. I'm done. Like the whole time I thought it was me. So again, reframing, shifting the beliefs, getting to the core, to the root of these things is so key. And if you don't know, or if you're confused, or you need some guidance, you can schedule a free root cause call with me and I'll help you unpack it. Doesn't matter what it is. If you're still in the relationship, if you're not in the relationship, if you've been out for 10 years, if you've been out for 10 minutes, you can still schedule with me and I will talk you through it. And then I'll say, here's where I think you should start your healing journey. I think you should start by going to therapy, or I think you should start by taking this online course of mine. I think you should start by joining my one-on-one program, whatever I feel like is going to be the best for you. And I'm not going to lead you astray, and I'm not going to try to tell you something I don't think is going to help you. Because the reality is, sometimes people get on those calls with me and my one-on-one coaching is not the right thing for them. And I don't want somebody to sign up for that if they're not ready, because it's not going to do them any good. So I'm not going to tell you that I think you should do it if it's really not going to help. And I can usually tell because based on someone's energy, based on their beliefs, based on how deeply they're in victim mode, based on how self-aware they are, these are the things that I can find out in that call, and I can direct you in the right way. Okay? So, just as a reminder, you didn't stay too long. You stayed until you could leave. You stayed until you had information. You stayed until it was right for you. And that's not a failure. That's just your body and mind's way of surviving and trying to keep you safe. And that's perfectly okay. Now, next week, we're going to be talking about why you should be angry about it. And part of this is about why your anger is not only valid, but a necessary part of your healing. So, if you're angry, you should listen. If you're somebody who says, oh, I don't get angry, I'm not an angry person, you should also listen. Okay? So I'll talk to you all next week. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.